Lisa, as we get started, first of all, why is it a triple threat? Why have you and I said for years, if you can brand yourself as an author, a coach, and a speaker, you are just a triple threat? Why is that?
Right. Well, because when companies back in the day, like you were saying, when you had to travel and go places, a lot of times, they want to know that you know what you're talking about. So the old saying, as I wrote the book on, so if you wrote a book on what you're speaking about, that's just an added bonus. It's just like in the when you're what is it, an actress, singer, and dancer. It's like if you
Sure.
have all three of those things, that's great because then they can get you into anything. So it's the same type of thing for author, coach, and speaker. And I hear it all the time when I talk to people who are authors and have written a book or want to write a book. It always goes hand in hand. I was talking to somebody today and I said, speaking and being an author and speaking goes hand in hand. And even if your goal is not to get on a stage in front of 5,000 people, maybe that you have no desire to do that, it doesn't matter, because if you're going to be an author, there's going to be a time when you're going to have to speak about your book. You're going to have to speak to people about it. So, they go hand in hand. You can't just be an author and be quiet. You have to
Yeah.
be able to speak about your message.
Yeah. And even fiction, William saying I'm an author, a speaker, and a coach. Yeah, absolutely. Even when you say, well, gee, I'm a fiction author or I'm a children's author, why do I have to speak? Look, when you are interviewed, first of all, as an author, we want to be interviewed by media. So you're going to speak. Like it, communication, one way is written, one way is verbal, and you just need to be, what is it, ambidextrous, where you can do left and right hand.
Exactly.
I mean, that's kind of what you're doing. So let me just jump in, folks, and say this. Also, income streams are really important when you're an author, coach, and speaker. Number one, like my book Unhackable just came out, right? And people are buying a ton of these, but I'm also being asked to speak about it. And I hate to do book signings. Like people might think, what the heck? But I hate to do book signings. You know why? Because I can't speak about my book, meaning I'm just at a bookstore and people are walking by and they have their own agenda. But Lisa, when I can speak first to an audience, then sell my book, I love it because now they heard the message. But it's very hard to sell books when you can't talk about your book. Does that
Right.
make sense?
Oh, absolutely. I know when you're at a book signing and you're just sitting there and it's almost like you're going, hey, come on over here and talk to me, because nobody knows who you are, what your book's about. But you go to an event or even online, we just did it this past weekend, go on an event where you can actually share your message and your story about your book, whether it's fiction or nonfiction, and you learn that art of really connecting to that audience. Then when it comes time to, at the end of the talk, everybody wants your book because they feel connected to you. They want to know you more. They want you to sign that book. It's just different. And so there really is an art to truly connecting to an audience when you're speaking, no matter what it's about. So,
Yeah, and Catherine says, I've been a lobbyist. I addressed our state parliament. I write and speak often. The reason why you also want to be a coach is because then you can do follow-up service.
mhm.
An author is great that you sell a book, it's, $15. Now, if you're smart, you put in their back ads, which talk about your other services. But Lisa, we're going to teach people today how to create 3 killer keynotes. And this is why I'm so excited about speakeracademyelite.com. I actually bought the domain years ago because this was in my head. How can we help tribe members not only write and publish through Author Academy Elite, but how can we help them then get on stages and then also be a coach? So really you have 3 impact streams, but also 3 income streams. You're selling books, you're speaking about your book, which helps you sell books, but then you're coaching around your book and even fiction. Yes, even the people who say, how in the heck could you do that with fiction? I did it with fiction. And you just tie your characters and universal truths and all these things to people. In other words, how is your productivity getting hacked? And so it can absolutely happen with that. But let's go in and let's say a little bit of a background story, because we didn't just arrive here.
No.
We're speaking to you, Miss USA contestant, Miss Ohio, Mrs. International, and you're speaking to a guy who had a learning disability and walked off stage in tears at the age of 18 and said, I will never again speak on a stage.
Right.
So I want people to realize, like, you didn't just pop up and say, oh, I'm fearless. And let's face it, I'd love for people to share. There's a lot of fears about speaking, even going live, because nobody, tell people what the greatest fear in life is.
Yeah, the biggest fear is speaking, public speaking. And I can totally relate to every single person that messages me and says, I'm scared, I don't want to do it. I get it, because I was kind of thrust into the public speaking realm. Coming from, my story is a long story, but coming from the pageant world when I was 24 years old, somebody said, you need to get on, you need to compete. And I was like, had already told all the things to myself that I couldn't do. I can't, I'm not pretty enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not tall enough. I'm not skinny enough. I've got scar on my knee. I'm all the things. I could never do it. But somebody believed in me. And so that was the beginning of that. But winning Miss Ohio, which I ended up doing against like 189 girls that were on that stage. And I won my first time ever in the system, and ended up going to Miss USA. But then when you win something like that, all of a sudden you're a public speaker, you're a public figure, you're on those stages, you have to get on it. You have to, and I had no idea how to do it. I mean, like people say, the old sink or swim. It was like, no, I'm in there treading water, just praying I can figure it out, because I had no idea what I was doing. And so I totally understand people when they say, this scares me. I don't know, because I've been there too. And I've been doing this for over 30 years. And so, no, it wasn't something that I just said, hey, I'm good, I can speak, let me teach people. No, I have honed in on this skill for years and helped many others do it. So I get it.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, listen, let's jump right in, and we're going to give some people some gold today. So what I want you to do, folks, is get a piece of paper, get a pen. And Lisa is right. She just shared a little bit about her own story. Lisa, you can see my screen?
Yes.
So again, you mentioned that you were kind of thrust upon the stage, and you were in all these pageants, and a large part of the pageant is speaking, correct?
Well, especially I was in the Miss USA, and then I was a one and doneer. It was like, okay, that was fun, but I'm moving on. And I met my husband and got married and all the things, and had two little girls, and had a platform. I had written a children's book that I really wanted to get out there to the world. Mm-hmm. And somebody had come up to me and asked me if I knew about Mrs. pageants, which I'd never heard of, Carrie. Never heard of it. It's like, what is it? Mm-hmm. And what got me was when they said, well, it's different because 50% of your score is your interview and what you want to speak on, right? What do you want to speak on? I knew I had a heart and a passion, just like so many of the people out there listening today. So many of your authors, they have a heart and a passion for something. And that's what I saw. It was like 50% is what you want to speak on. What is in your heart? What do you want to do? I wanted to be a national spokesperson for the American Diabetes Association. Done deal. I'd written a children's book. That's where my goal was. And so I competed and won, and ended up, like I said, becoming a national spokesperson, traveled, did all kinds of things, modeling, being a spokesperson for other companies. I've worked with Nationwide Insurance, Bristol Myers Squibb Pharmaceutical Company. I've done theater, I've done commercial work. So I've been in this world for so long. But my favorite part of it was when I would help others hone in on that skill. Yep. And so for the last, 20 years, I've been working with some high profile people that are trying to get up there and get on those bigger stages, and just really working and helping them learn the true art of connection, and how we do that. And so that's where my love for this came. And then, of course, once I found you all and I was in firing, and all of a sudden it was just like, this is something I want to take a pivot from my book and take a pivot and help others do what they are called to do. Because Absolutely. So many people need help. So many people need help with that. And that's where it's like, this is what I want to help people do.
Well, and let's face it, there's a little rule that probably most of us don't know, but folks, you got to catch this. When you speak well in public, just hear this for a second. When you speak well in public, It's not fair, but this is what people think. People think when they don't know someone and they suddenly speak well at a wedding with a toast, with an announcement, in a group setting, here's what they say: that person must be good at other things. In other words, it's not fair, but because you're a good speaker, they say that person must be really good at other things. That person must be a good father, a good husband, a good wife. That person must have a great book. It's not fair, but what they do is they see you in a certain light. It's just true. And here's what else they think: you could be the best person in the world, but if you stand up and don't nail it and you actually struggle, it's not fair. But, and correct, Yovina says this is true. Again, in the chat, tell me if this is true. I'm not saying it's fair, but what this is they then say, this person must be insecure in other areas. This person must not be competent in other areas. Now, listen, I'm not saying I agree, because I'm a guy who struggled with stuttering, and I'm a guy who struggled with a learning disability, and I wanted to speak well, but I was totally not confident. And people are literally saying true, 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 and it's weird, but yes,
Well, I
absolutely.
mean, that even happened, Carrie, at the conference this past weekend. A lot of people don't know me; they just see me, right? And that happens, like I said, back in my world 30 years ago when I won Miss Ohio, and it was like all of a sudden people saw me differently, and it was like, and then you have to kind of learn how to step into that, which is great. I think whenever we have to learn to step into a better version of ourselves, that's amazing. And so
Right.
that's what it was forcing me to do. It was forcing me to step into a better version of myself. But all that being said, but just like at the conference, I was sharing from my heart how I feel
Yeah.
about Speaker Academy Elite. And I was tearing up a little bit. And that was because number one, it was a lot of a year worth of a lot, right? Just a lot of really stretching myself and developing and wanting to help, and truly just standing there saying, you guys, I want to help you. That's my heart. My heart is to help everyone be able to do better with their businesses or their books or whatever it is that they want to do, just because of what you just said. It's being a confident somebody that can stand up in front of a group and just exude confidence. And trust me, that takes a lot of work. That
Right.
doesn't come natural. And so people were saying to me afterwards, they're like, I didn't know I would you when you were so, and it was like, because I was just being authentic.
Right.
And
Right.
seeing a
Well,
lot
right. Well, we're
yeah.
going to talk about that today, about authenticity. But again, I've had to stand on stages. You have, here's Joel, and the clothes are cool and all that jazz. But I'm telling you, confidence is something that's incredibly powerful. I
Yeah.
want to share the model today. So when you share this model with me, and again, folks, write this down because you're going to get some gold today. What you really want with a powerful speech, some people call it a killer keynote, you want, first of all, clarity. If you are a speaker and you go on stage and people say, what the heck was that?
Oh my gosh, doesn't that happen all the time when you're
Yeah,
like, I don't even know what they were trying to teach me. I don't
yeah,
even know what I was supposed to learn.
exactly. That's not a good thing when people say, what the heck was that? But yet they do. And the other thing is when people say, oh my gosh, I believe that person. In other words, are you believable? And listen, it's tough to sell something you don't believe in. Try doing that. Some of us have done that in a job, and we're like, you know what? I don't even believe this thing will work. People can tell. And the other one is connection. Do the people feel like you've connected with them? There's a gentleman named John Maxwell who says, everyone communicates if you connect. We all speak,
Yep.
but do we connect? And so, Lisa, when you and I chatted about this and bringing this to the world through Speaker Academy Elite, we said, listen, can our people, because this is what we look for on our stages, can our people speak clearly? Can they be confident? And can they do connection? And that's really what this is about. And I will tell you this, it comes from having passion. And when you showed me this, I started talking Greek to you, literally.
Yes, you did.
And the reason why is because for years I've studied the ancient Greeks and speaking, because That's how they used to do it. Ancient Greeks, I mean, you would speak and you would be judged, your entire message, your entire discipline, you as a person. Soapboxes, back thousands of years after that, where people would set up a soapbox and stand on it. But folks, this is what we're talking about today, that passion is pathos. It comes from a Greek word, emotion, heart. Preparation is ethos, credibility, authority. Can I trust this person? Are they believable? And then presentation, the logos, the word, the actual speech. And when you showed me this, I was like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Pathos, ethos, logos, passion, preparation, presentation. And when you have passion, let's talk about this for a moment. When you have passion and preparation, why do you think clarity comes?
Because you already have that heart for whatever it is you want to speak about. Hopefully it's already in you as far as the heart of it. But getting it out there is a different story, or figuring out how to relay it in a way that truly does bring clarity. And so I always say, when you have it, automatically you already have your heart for your message, we hope. And if not, I can help you get there. But you have to be prepared. And once the preparation comes, once you're prepared and you know where you're going and you know exactly, you nail it every time, all of a sudden the clarity's there.
Yeah.
And that's what I tell people all the time. Even for me, when you're developing something, it takes a hot minute for those two to come together. Mm-hmm. Because you're in it, you know what you want. Like, I knew I wanted to help people, but I had to prepare. How do I help people? Mm-hmm. I know how I do it one-on-one when I'm working with, people. When I'm helping somebody get on that Miss USA stage, when I'm helping somebody, do those messages, I know how to do it, but it's like, I have to put this to words. I have to put this into a program. And so there was a lot of not clarity for me there for a little bit, because I was preparing, and that's okay. And so many people, and Carrie, this is where they tap out. They have the passion, but they haven't done that part, and they don't have the clarity. And then they think, this isn't working. This isn't working. I can't do it. And a lot of times it's just pivoting. Talked about this yesterday with the group. It's about pivoting. Sometimes you have to pivot a little bit and you'll find it. And so that's really important. That's where the clarity comes from.
Yeah. We've all heard someone on stage who's just oozing passion. I mean, they're just, they're sharing their heart. You can tell something's heavy. You can tell it's deep, but if they're not prepared, then people kind of come off and say, I believe that person had emotion, but I just don't know what they were trying to say. Right. But when you have that preparation, in Deeper Path, I say, when you prepare for the moment is prepared for you. And it does take time. And this is why people do stand on stage and we say, wow, that person is a natural. Mm-hmm. Or it looks like it comes so easy. I mean, you look at Michael Phelps swim and you're like, oh my gosh, he was built for swimming and he does it so effortless. Well, he does it effortless because you don't see all the preparation that's happening. Yeah. And let me tell you this, folks, the stage doesn't ruin you. It reveals you.
Yes, it does. Yeah.
The stage reveals the preparation that you've done or not done. And
it's funny, Carrie, because I always get people telling me this too. They'll say, well, I don't want to be overly prepared because I don't want to sound like it's scripted. And I always say you're in the middle then. If you're coming across as scripted, then you're in the middle. You haven't prepared enough.
Yeah.
Because the preparation and getting the message in you is where you can share it. And it does just come across as effortless, that it is your passion, it is your heart, it is the clarity. And so I hear that all the time. Well, I don't want to be overly prepared. It's like, oh yeah, you need to be overly prepared.
Yep.
You need to be overly prepared because it needs to be in you.
Oh yeah. I love what Jim Z says. Even with excitement in your heart, you can't wing it and deliver with clarity. Preparation is key.
That's right.
I'll tell you this. I was supposed to go live today at 10:30 with Strategic Coach, and we started and the technology didn't work. And the gentleman had to fix it. He was a great guy named Alex. He totally fixed his own technology. And then we went 5 minutes after. But a lot of times I see people flustered because they're like, oh my gosh, well, hold on. We went for a minute now. I forget where we were. And again, what happens, Lisa, is that the person lets them show up on the stage. In other words, instead of being there for the audience and what does the audience need to hear, we let ourselves get hacked in the process. And I over prepare, like you said, so that I can go off script. But if you don't have a script to start, people say, what the heck was that? So let's jump in now and let's talk about why preparation and presentation give you confidence. Why do these two give you confidence?
Well, Carrie, that's the thing. So people always say, I don't have any confidence. I'm just not a confident speaker. I'm not confident on stage. And it's almost like we think that confidence is just going to come. You know, it's like it's just going to come. But confidence comes from doing the thing that you don't want to do. You have to continue to do it and do it and do it. You have to be prepared. You have to do that presentation. So once you are there, that's when the confidence comes, because you've done that thing that you don't want to do over. It's like your first Facebook Live. Nobody wants to do their first Facebook Live. I had somebody I was working with that they did their first one. They're like, oh my gosh, that was terrible. I'm like, yes, and I remember mine. I had the most views ever on my Facebook Live, my first one, because everybody was like, what is this girl doing? But you have to do it, right? You have to continue. And the more you do it, the more you do it, the more you do it, the better. All of a sudden, you're confident in that thing, right? It comes from doing. It doesn't come from thinking.
Oh, yeah. Listen, I'm just going to share with you folks, you have to prepare. In other words, you know, my books just came out this week, Unhackable. I was on a podcast, Zig Ziglar's. It's going to broadcast Monday. We're talking 5 million followers on Facebook. And I just want to share, like, come to my inbox. This is my inbox since we've been on. Okay, you can see. Interview request, right? Panelist, interview, publicity, like introduction. Folks, it's in your inbox too. And if it's not, it's coming. Like the world wants, I say God wants your message to be shared, but are you ready? Right. And if you're not ready, then don't blame God. You know what I'm saying? Like that's kind of what we do is we say, well, I'll prepare when the opportunity comes. No. You prepare right now.
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about some other things here. And now I'm curious, but I'm not going to get hacked about what interview that was. But it doesn't matter. You know what I'm saying? Like you speak to any crowd. You got to be ready. So let's.
Well, and just like you said, what you were saying about that is so many people think of speaking as getting on a stage, but right there, you had the opportunity to do a podcast and speak your message and what you wanted them to hear to 5 million people, right? If you're not prepared for that, you don't have to stand on a stage and do all the things you need to do to get your message out there. Now we're doing it virtually. And so that's big.
It is big. And I'm going to tell people, like, I was the panic guy. Like, I'm just being honest. I was so nervous that on a podcast or an interview or TV, the interviewer would say, Carrie, in chapter 5 of your book, you say this. And I'm like, oh, crud. I don't even remember what that is. Oh, my gosh. What are they talking? Like, I'm not even kidding, Lisa. My first TV interview, my book had so many Post-it notes. So, and I'll tell you what, I wasn't confident. And I thought they're going to come on now. I said, does somebody agree with this? I was so nervous. They were going to say, tell us about, the Boone check on page 232. And I would be like, oh my gosh, I don't even know. I just went blank. What, and now they're going to think I'm an idiot. And then my family's going to be mad. And then they're, and here's me. And that's where most speakers struggle. That's where they get hacked. That's where they're instead of saying, you know what, I'm going to trust that I prepared. I have a great content. And listen, the crowd's going to love it because I'm going to be real. Haven't
Yeah.
you seen that?
Oh yeah, I've been there. I've been there. I had in my book, I have five steps, and it's like, oh, I don't even remember what step 3 was. Because as I always say, when you're preparing it, when you're doing it, you're in the moment. So when I'm writing my book, I'm there and I'm done. And when it's done, I've got to go back then and get that story in me in a way that it's laid out. So I know exactly what you mean, because we put so much time doing it, but we have to get it in us. And so
Yep.
that doesn't mean that you don't know your book. It doesn't mean that you didn't know, your, what they were asking you. It just, at that time, it wasn't in you because you weren't prepared, like you said, for the moment.
Yep.
Because we're just, and that happened to me when my book was published, because, you get published and then all of a sudden you're wanted on, I was, doing news and doing radio and doing, and stuff. And it's like, whoo, I needed a hot minute to go back and just kind of refocus on what I wanted to share. Once you're prepared and you know what you're going to do, and then you connect that preparation, that you've done your preparation and you're going to present. So you've got your passion, your presentation, you're ready to present. When you attach that presentation of what you're going to do and you relax and you tie that into your passion, right? Then that's when they see, that's when the connection comes. That's when your audience is like, oh my gosh, they see their story in your story. They feel your heart behind what you're doing. Just like the Paul Dunn, we that was his name.
Yeah.
We felt his passion and his heart for what his message was, right? And so that's the important piece. So if I work with people all the time that sometimes they're too polished, they're too professional, they're too stiff, and they don't let their heart into their message, and it doesn't resonate either. So that's the part where you have to get where you have to really remember, like we talked about earlier, Carrie, it's not about you, it's about your audience. So when you're sharing your message, you're not sharing it for you to be boastful and say, here it is, or this is what I've been through, and this is what I've done, and this is me. It's about sharing your message so that people can see themselves in you.
Yep.
So people go, oh my gosh, that was so me. I used to stutter. Oh my gosh, I used to be, and that's what connects people. And so if you don't let a little bit of that in your message, and you don't bring that passion and your heart to it, and you're trying to be too professional and I'm sure there's a place for that. If you're talking to a corporate board room or whatever, there's always a place for that type of thing. But if you're trying to connect with people, that's not it. You have to connect the two. So you have passion, you're ready, your presentation, you immediately get connection.